Americans to leave more than a dozen countries in the region. Several diplomatic facilities have been targeted by Iran. President Trump says he believed Iran was going to attack U.S. interests first, and that is why he made the call to start the joint operation with Israel over the weekend. He says the United States and Israel have knocked out virtually everything Iran had during this 4-day-old operation. The president hosted the Chancellor of Germany today at the White House. Trump administration officials are briefing members of Congress today. Secretary of State Marco Rubio insists the White House has complied with all applicable laws. Israel targeted a meeting in the Iranian Supreme Council where officials were gathering to choose a new supreme leader. We've got Fox News coverage for you this evening. Ika Husky at the White House tells us President Trump is not happy with a couple of American allies and lack of cooperation. Jennifer Griffin looks at what is happening on and above the battlefield. Trey Yingst in Tel Aviv tells us attacks are underway again tonight. We begin with our senior foreign policy correspondent Jillian Turner at the State Department with news about evacuations. Good evening, Jillian.
Good evening to you, John. Iran's military now opening a new front in their counteroffensive targeting American embassies and consulates overseas in the Mideast. Secretary Rubio has two warnings tonight, one for the Iranian regime and another for Americans abroad who are now caught in their crosshairs.
We need to know where you are. We need to have contact information for Americans that need assistance. They have to register with us.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio says Americans in the Mideast in harm's way need to reach out to the State Department now. Americans overseas should call +1 202 501 4444. The State Department will work with Americans directly to help get them out of harm's way.
We have identified and continue to identify charter flights, military flight options, and expanded commercial flight options, meaning working with the airlines to send bigger airplanes with more seats.
Tonight, as most commercial airspace in the region remains closed, State Department evacuation flights and even bus rides are underway, departing from the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, and Bahrain. This as U.S. diplomatic outposts have become direct military targets for the IRGC and Iran-backed militias. The U.S. Embassy in Riyadh today hit by 2 drones. The U.S. consulate in Dubai narrowly escaped enemy fire, both under evacuation orders, and report no diplomats or staff were hurt. Some Americans stuck say they're not waiting for help.
Rather than wait for the U.S. flight, we're just trying to see if we can get out of the region.
Others say they're cornered.
Oman, Kuwait, Abu Dhabi, Dubai, Saudi Arabia, everywhere is getting attacked.
President Trump, asked about Americans overseas, said this today.
Commercial air travel right now is severely restricted in the Middle East, and thousands of Americans are stranded. Why wasn't there an evacuation plan, and will you send planes to get people out?
Well, because it happened all very quickly. We thought, and I thought maybe more so than most, I could ask Marco, but I thought we were going to have a situation where we were going to be attacked. They were getting ready to attack Israel. They were getting ready to attack others.
Diplomatic staff ordered to leave 14 countries earlier today, and a worldwide caution alert for all Americans remains in place tonight, at home and abroad. A worldwide caution alert remains in place for all Americans overseas and here at home. Tonight, Secretary Rubio's task force, we are now learning, is operating 24/7 to try and help as many Americans in the region as possible. But those who want help do need to reach out and make contact urgently with the State Department. John?
Okay, he said logistically it's difficult with airspace being closed, then open, and then closed again, but I'm sure they'll work it all out. Jillian, thank you for the update. Air raid sirens have again been sounding in Tel Aviv tonight as Iran launches more retaliatory strikes. Our chief foreign correspondent Trey Yingst is in Tel Aviv tonight. Good evening, Trey.
John, good evening. Tonight, Israel is bracing for more incoming Iranian ballistic missile fire. Throughout the day, missiles soared through the skies of this country, most of them intercepted by Israel's missile defense systems. Pieces of one missile landed just outside of Tel Aviv. Israeli officials say the Iranian regime launched ballistic missiles at Israel's second largest city of Tel Aviv, one of them with a cluster munition on top, causing a significant amount of damage to this community of Bnei Brak. The Israelis are striking back today. The Israeli Air Force targeted a Supreme Council building where officials were tallying votes for Iran's next supreme leader. Israel's prime minister says this offensive action will continue.
We will continue to do what is necessary for our defense. We are on the 4th day of Operation Roaring Lion. We are roaring, and we are operating.
And in Iran, funerals were held today for school children who were reportedly killed during the opening round of U.S. and Israeli strikes. Iran's foreign minister making new remarks about the developing conflict.
We are also dealing with Americans who are attacking us day and night by every means, and with the Israelis, of course.
Iran's foreign minister did not mention Gulf countries in his remarks. Iran continues to attack them. For now, those countries remain on defense. And tonight, Qatar says they have arrested 2 cells of IRGC members in their country. John?
Oh, that's news. Interesting. Trey Yanks for us in Tel Aviv. As always, Trey, thank you. Stay safe. U.S. Central Command says it has destroyed almost a dozen Iranian naval vessels along with key military sites. Tonight, we are learning more about the goals of the joint operation with Israel. Our Chief National Security Correspondent Jennifer Griffin here with the details. Good evening, Jen.
Good evening, John. Fox News has confirmed that the CIA station in Riyadh was hit Monday by an Iranian drone, part of that drone strike targeting the U.S. Embassy compound last night. There were no injuries, but certainly a symbolic victory for the IRGC. This was first reported by the Washington Post.
The Pentagon had outlined 3 goals for this military operation. Destroy Iran's ballistic missiles, sink Iran's navy, and make sure Iran never has a nuclear weapon. Now President Trump is expanding the U.S. mission to include targeting Iranian proxies in the region and would not rule out sending ground troops to Iran. The Pentagon's top policy official, who has long lobbied for the U.S. to pivot away from the Middle East to focus on Asia, was in the hot seat before the Senate Armed Services Committee this morning.
So you do agree with him now that putting boots on the ground is a possible,
well, I mean, the president has reserved the right
viable
to.
option.
The president has, obviously, as he's discussed.
I don't want to know what the president. I've heard what the president said. I want to know what you think.
Well, I'm a lieutenant of the president, so I'm keyed on his intent.
But not everything has gone according to plan.
No problem. You're safe. You're safe. You're safe. Everything good? No problem. Thank you for helping us.
Video has emerged of one of the 6 pilots landing safely on a Kuwaiti beach being welcomed by a concerned Kuwaiti after her F-15 fighter jet, one of 3 shot down in a friendly fire incident yesterday in Kuwait. For the most part, the U.S. has not targeted Iran's 3 nuclear sites at Fordo, Natanz, and Isfahan, which were hit last summer. Satellite images show recent airstrikes targeting the access points to the underground Natanz enrichment plant. The U.S. military has sunk all 11 of Iran's large naval vessels. Much harder will be dealing with Iran's array of fast boats and its ability to mine the Strait of Hormuz, using civilian cargo vessels as cover. Now President Trump has ordered the U.S. Navy to begin escorting oil tankers and the U.S. Development Finance Corporation to provide risk insurance.
A senior U.S. defense official tells me that waves of Iranian missiles are declining after 4 days of targeting the missile launchers. Saturday, there were about 90 missiles launched toward Israel. Today, only 20, John.
But as we were talking about, they still have all those drones.
The drones are going to be a problem. They will be the suicide bombs of the next era in the Middle East.
All right, we'll keep watching it. Good to have you on the task.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. Well, the Dow dropped more than 800 points earlier today as oil prices rose. It finished off 404. The S&P 500 lost 65. The NASDAQ fell 232. More on the economic impact coming up with Charles Payne. Wall Street is just one place where people are feeling a little shaky tonight. Main Street is another. Brand new Fox polling indicates how Americans are responding to the Iran operation. Just 29% of those participating feel safer because of the president's handling of Iran. 51% say they feel less safe. 19% say no difference. Tonight, the president is calling out some of America's allies over their stance on the operation. White House correspondent Aisha Hasni has that part of the story tonight. She's at the White House. Good evening, Aisha.
John, good evening to you. That's right. The president and his cabinet continues to defend his decision and his reasoning for striking Iran. As you just pointed out, the markets are dipping, oil is rising, and some allies are resisting joining the fight.
Spain has been very, very uncooperative, and so has UK. This is not Winston Churchill that we're dealing with.
President Trump threatening to stop all trade with Spain after it refused to allow U.S. troops to use its bases for strikes on Iran.
We don't want anything to do with Spain.
Spain, an EU member, reacting almost immediately, saying the U.S. cannot make such a move unilaterally. The threats came during an Oval Office meeting with German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, who's been walking a diplomatic tightrope, but today questioned what's next.
We have to talk about the strategy, what is following after this.
Trump says most of the people he had in mind to lead Iran are now dead, and now he's moving his attention to another group.
They may be dead also, based on reports.
Reza Pahlavi, is he an option at all in your mind?
I guess he is. It would seem to me that somebody from within maybe would be more appropriate.
The president and his cabinet have been flooding the airwaves, trying to ease fears here at home, as new Fox News polling reveals Americans are split on the strikes. And while 61% believe Iran poses a real national security threat to the U.S., that number is down 12 points from last June, when Trump launched Operation Midnight Hammer, which targeted the country's nuclear facilities. Concerns spiraling as U.S. stocks fell today and oil prices soared. The International Monetary Fund warning the conflict could hurt the global economy if energy prices continue to spike. Trump announcing on Truth Social the U.S. will now ensure all maritime trade, especially energy, traveling through the Gulf.
As soon as this ends, those prices are going to drop.
And one more thing to track here, John. The Wall Street Journal reporting tonight that the president is thinking about leaning on militia groups inside Iran to help topple this regime that is still barely hanging on. He called Kurdish leaders over the weekend in Iraq, a group that boasts hundreds of thousands of fighters that are on the Iraq-Iran border at the ready. The White House, though, has not confirmed what those calls were about. John?
A lot of moving pieces to this. Aisha Husney for us at the White House. Aisha, thank you. Coming up next, Charles Payne from Fox Business about the economic fallout from the Iran conflict. First, beyond our borders tonight. Afghanistan's ground forces attacked Pakistan's military positions at 16 locations along the southwestern border. Troops fired on multiple points in the northwest, triggering intense clashes in which 67 Afghan security force members and one Pakistani soldier were killed. It is the 5th consecutive day of fighting between the two neighbors. 3 British men suing actor Kevin Spacey over alleged sexual assault are asking London's High Court to allow them to rely on accusations by 7 others. A civil trial against the Oscar-winning actor begins later this year. Spacey was found not guilty in a criminal trial. That was back in 2023. And this is a live look at Amsterdam, courtesy of EarthCam. One of the big stories.
So I gave you a little more than I gave myself.
That was once rejected as a
but it's a little high in carbs. I didn't realize that. So you tell me what you think. We'll take one more bite.
After 2 years of scrutiny, the Netherlands National
Art
History Museum says the vision of Zacharias in the temple was painted in 1633 by the then 27-year-old Rembrandt.
That's good.
Just some of the other stories beyond our borders tonight.
Very good.
We will be
yeah.
right back.
Got 20-something carbs in it, though.
Well, I haven't taken the insulin yet, so.
Living with chronic migraine?
Oh.
15 or more headache days a month, each lasting 4 hours or more. Botox prevents headaches in adults with chronic migraine, and treatment is 4 times a year. Huh? So why wait?
Yeah. That's okay.
Talk to your doctor.
Both?
I'm fast forwarding.
Oh.
Yeah. As soon as this ends, those prices are going to drop, I believe, lower than even before.
What he's doing right now is driving up the cost of average Americans. Look at the price of gas and fuel right now as a result of his adventurism.
Whenever you have something like this happen, you'll get prices going up and spiking. I don't expect this to last very long.
Let's talk about the economic impact of the Iran conflict and what it means for you. Fox Business anchor Charles Payne is with us this evening. Good evening, Charles. So the president is doing whatever he can to try to minimize the global economic impact of this. He put this out on Truth Social earlier about commerce going through the Persian Gulf and through the Strait of Hormuz. He said, effective immediately, I've ordered the United States Development Finance Corporation to provide at very reasonable price political risk insurance and guarantees for financial security of all maritime trade, especially energy traveling through the Gulf. This will be available to all shipping lines. If necessary, the United States Navy will begin escorting tankers through the Strait of Hormuz as soon as possible. No matter what, the United States will ensure the free flow of energy to the world. How was that received?
Well, the markets, I heard earlier in the show you mentioned we were down 800 on the Dow. We closed down 400, just like yesterday. Pretty impressive intraday reversal. Listen, this thing is all about longevity, really, more than anything else, and how long will it take to get resolution, particularly for the oil markets, right? Because that's a global commodity. Everyone needs it. Everyone spends money on it. The insurance part, I think, is intriguing because it's not new. It's been done before. In fact, in 1914, it was done for the first time. And later on, in 1917, it became the foundation of insurance for all military. So that's the irony here. That's how military ended up getting insurance in the first place. The other part is a little bit more complicated. A lot of people are discussing it. I think more than anything else is really degrading the ability for Iran to launch any sort of attacks on the Strait of Hormuz, because that's ultimately what the real risk is right now. The ironic thing right now, John, is they really haven't done anything there, but it's been insurance companies that have stopped all of this, right? Lloyd's of London said we're going to cancel a lot of policies, or if you keep your policy, we'll jack it up 500%. So I think the economic part of this makes a whole lot of sense. And I think it'll be a week to 10 days before we can really truly demolish all of the threat in terms of the Strait of Hormuz anyway.
Yeah, well, the Iranian Navy lies at the bottom of the ocean, though they still have drones, and as we've seen down in the Red Sea, the Houthis attack shipping using drones as well. They've also got missiles. Let's go back to oil prices here because they really have spiked up. Look at this graph here. They really take a shot up northwards of $80, or heading towards $80 a barrel. Gas prices, a week ago, the average was $2.95. The current average, $3.11. And this from Reuters said, though the U.S. is more buffered from shocks than many other developed countries because of domestic oil and gas production, the global impact on trade, prices, and investment could spill back and undermine what had been a developing bullish growth outlook for this year. This was the year that President Trump said that the big, beautiful bill chickens come home to roost. Everybody's going to have a great prosperity for their families. Is this potentially going to put a crimp in that?
You know, I get back to my first answer. Depends on how long it lingers. Really, it's we've already seen signs that all of the efforts that were made by this administration last year are starting to impact. We had two back-to-back monster manufacturing reports out, phenomenal. Consumer sentiment is starting to skyrocket again. Those big paychecks are going out. Those tax refunds are going out. So the mood is great in terms of, the direction we're going in is fantastic. So it depends on how long this lingers. That chart you have was maybe a 5, 6 day, 7 day chart. If we pull back like a 2 or 3 year chart, you'll see where, particularly in the last year, oil prices have come down dramatically. So we can make this a short-term thing. We'll probably be talking about crude oil back under $70, maybe in the low 60s soon.
Well, and if we can open up the Iranian oil fields to American development at some point in the future, maybe even lower than that. We'll see.
That's really that would be really phenomenal, particularly for our European trading partners.
All right, well, we'll see what happens. Charles, thank you for the update. Appreciate it. Coming up next, the Homeland Security Secretary tells senators that her people are working with law enforcement and intelligence to find domestic terror threats. And then primary elections in the great state of Texas tonight. We will tell you what's at stake.
Our family started Cane Brew with a dream and a lot of hard work. Now we're thriving, growing, and hiring. Artificial intelligence has made all the difference for our business. We're a case study for
Granger, for the ones who get it done.
Breaking tonight, the president's Homeland Security Secretary is halfway through what promises to be one of the toughest two-day stretches in a long time. Kristi Noem appearing before a Senate hearing today.
She has done a great job, and I'm very proud of her.
Is any indication, she is going to need a good night's sleep. Correspondent David Spunt shows us tonight.
After a few early outbursts,
Idiots.
the criticism came from both Democrats and Republicans.
What we've seen is a disaster.
Shame on
your
you,
leadership, Mr.
Thomas Tillis.
A disaster.
Shame on
Either
you.
you are utterly incompetent,
And shame on him. I expected it out of him. He's nothing but a jerk. Cory Booker. Shame on him.
You should be removed by this president, and if not, Congress should impeach you.
Others were quick to bring up the ongoing Homeland Security funding lapse and security concerns in the wake of what officials are investigating as a possible terror attack in Texas.
Wonder how many people are like that here, waiting to pounce, and DHS doesn't have appropriated funds.
Right.
This is
Thanks to the
insane.
Democrats.
We work every single day with our intelligence agencies and law enforcement partners to make sure that we are investigating and finding any threats to the homeland here within our borders.
Democrats are holding up funding over concerns about the chaos that engulfed the streets of Minneapolis in January.
Because there are crooks in Minneapolis, the mayor and the governor. Both of them Democratic crooks.
Umbrella.
You should be horrified by what
And shame on you. You should be horrified, lady. Shame on you.
Nome also facing scrutiny over reports she's flying around in a luxury plane and a reported $220 million ad campaign for the department, one featuring Nome on horseback.
The president
And it should
approved
be.
ahead of time you spending $220 million running TV ads across the country in which you are featured prominently.
Yes, sir. We went through the legal processes.
Senators Kennedy and Adam Schiff allege a company run by the husband of former DHS spokeswoman Tricia McLaughlin received more than $100 million from DHS to make the commercials. But McLaughlin is fighting back, going on the record tonight to say her husband's company was not paid directly by DHS. She says the company was subcontracted and made $226,000 for production costs. Secretary Nome is back on Capitol Hill tomorrow, John, to face similar questions from House lawmakers.
All right, we look forward to see how that goes. David, thank you.
Thank you.
Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick says he will testify to the House Oversight Committee about his relationship with the late businessman and sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Panel Chairman James Comer says Lutnick agreed voluntarily to appear. Lutnick says he has done nothing wrong. Epstein was once Lutnick's next-door neighbor. Lutnick has admitted to going to Epstein's private island. Top administration officials came to Capitol Hill this afternoon to brief the full Senate and later the House on the Iran conflict. Correspondent Bill Malugin is there tonight. He joins us. Good evening, Bill.
John, good evening to you. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has had himself a busy day here on the Hill, giving classified briefings to all of Congress about Iran. The House just wrapped up a short time ago. The Senate was earlier this afternoon.
In there that this is an open-ended operation that hasn't even really started in earnest.
Oh, shame on you.
More Americans killed. They refuse to take off the table the insertion of ground troops.
Now the House is set to vote on a war powers resolution for Iran later this week, likely on Thursday. Democrats say President Trump's bombing of Iran without congressional approval is illegal.
I heard some saying, it's just the usual politics. They're for war under Obama and Clinton. They're not for any kind of conflict under Trump. So it's just pure politics.
That's right. You're right.
But back when President Obama was in office, then House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi said Obama didn't need Congress's approval to bomb Libya. We asked current House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries about that earlier today.
Back in 2011, Nancy Pelosi said that then President Obama didn't need congressional approval to bomb Libya. Now House Democrats say President Trump needs that approval to bomb Iran. What's the difference?
Well, obviously, Libya and the circumstances connected to that were very different than the circumstances.
Nonsense. Shame on you.
In Iran right now. I mean, I don't even understand the genesis or basis of that question. Not suggesting that you're not asking it in good faith.
Libya went on for 7 months.
As I've indicated, first of all, it was not in Congress.
And John, we did reach out to Congresswoman Pelosi's office about her prior position on Libya. They told us there is a big distinction between Libya, which they say was a limited operation, and Iran, which they describe as a, quote, escalating war. They say Pelosi's position is that prolonged war requires congressional approval. But John, Libya
Pelosi
did last
is shameful.
for 7 months, and it included a no-fly zone. Send it back to you.
And this president has been doing it for 4 days so far. All right.
Yeah.
Bill, thank you. We want to jump now to the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson. He's speaking after that gang of 8 briefing. Let's listen.
here tonight, who said very well, very clearly, fell just short of citing the specific case law, but explained that this has been the tradition for decades. The president is well within his constitutional authority to do what he has done, and it is entirely consistent with a history of former presidents for at least 4 decades. There's no question about this. The Democrats never had any question about it when Democrat presidents were using this authority. When you look at the analysis of the War Powers Act and the law that applies and the powers that are given to the Commander-in-Chief under Article 2 of the Constitution, President Trump has done exactly what he should do. He is squarely within the law. He used his discretion, his authority, and the intelligence that he had, exquisite as it was, as it's demonstrated by its effectiveness, and he did what he should have done as a commander-in-chief. The idea that a few colleagues here would try to move a war powers motion and resolution to the floor right now is dangerous. Imagine a scenario where Congress would vote to tell the commander-in-chief that he was no longer allowed to complete this mission. That would be a very dangerous thing. You see
now listen to that,
Iran
Congressman
is firing almost seemingly
Thomas
indiscriminately at targets.
You're being
They're
shameful.
trying to intimidate America. They're trying to
Attacking the
test
president.
our resolve. And the idea that there's some members of this legislative body that would play along with that plays right into the hands of the enemy. And I think it's shameful. I do believe we have the votes to defeat it. I certainly hope we do, because we have lots of troops, service members in harm's way right now, and the balance of this thing is hanging there. It's been very effective thus far. It needs to be completed. We don't need Congress getting in the way of that. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Is there any indication of plans? Representative Scalise said he heard one. Democrats say they're not hearing one. What happens when the war ends? What does that look like? And then what does the day after look like?
Look, no one can yet determine with any degree of certainty how this will turn out. We have taken out what appears to be top few layers of leaders and potential leaders who would take over there. It is time for the people of Iran to step up and seize this moment of opportunity for them, the one that they have long awaited, to have freedom there. We're encouraging that. We're hopeful for that. I think our NATO allies and our other allies around the world are watching with great anticipation and hope. I suspect that the entire world will reach out a hand of encouragement and assistance as is needed to help them. We have
you can lead the horse to water, but you can't make him drink.
Building business, we don't do that. We're not the world's policemen. America has enough trouble of our own. But I think this is a great development for the people there to be able to stand on their own 2 feet and seize this moment of opportunity. We're certainly hopeful and prayerful that they will, and that no other innocent people are killed. Iran, by some estimates, murdered tens of thousands of their own citizens just within the last several weeks. Those people are now deceased. They do not have the ability to do that. There's still dangerous folks there, but there's more good people. There's more people who desire to have freedom and liberty, and there are terrorists and tyrants in the world. I'm grateful for that. This is their moment to step up, and I hope they will.
All right, Speaker Johnson there talking after the Gang of Eight meeting about the future of Iran. He says it's up to the people of Iran to choose which direction they want to go in next. That is, as long as the regime is weakened enough for people to rise up, and also saying that the president is well within his legal authority to launch this operation against Iran without congressional authority. The speaker saying that there's no need to have a war powers resolution vote later on this week. He says, can you imagine restraining the president's hands in the middle of an operation like this, what that could lead to? Coming up next, tech leaders come to Washington to talk about artificial intelligence. We've got that for you. Is in Austin tonight.
If the Attorney General is the nominee, that risks everything we've been working on for decades in Texas.
Incumbent Senator John Cornyn says Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton's ethics complaints make him unelectable. In 2023, the GOP-led Texas State House impeached Paxton on charges of bribery and abuse of office. The Texas Senate acquitted him. Paxton says Cornyn's argument is nonsense.
He's going to end up losing because he did not take care of his people over the last 24 years in the Senate. This idea that I can't win a race is not true.
And Congressman Wesley Hunt maintains he's the best Republican against either Democratic candidate.
I'm already outperforming both candidates, both Ken and John in the general election against a James Tallarico or against a Jasmine Crockett.
President Trump has made no endorsement in this race. On the Democratic side, another debate over who can win a general election. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett faces state representative and seminarian James Tallarico. Tallarico argues he's best positioned to deliver Democrats their first U.S. Senate victory in the state since 1988.
We're not going to beat the politics of division with more division. We're not going to win this race by shaming or alienating or ridiculing our neighbors.
What I wanted to do was double down on our base and make sure that they turn out, because we know that historically in the state of Texas, we have one of the lowest voter turnouts in the entire country.
Candidates need at least 50% of the vote to win their party's nomination. Otherwise, the top two vote getters advance to a runoff May 26th. In South Texas, Republican Congressman Tony Gonzalez is facing a primary challenge and accusations of an affair with a staffer who later committed suicide. Gonzalez denies the accusations. In the Houston area, Congressman Dan Crenshaw also has a primary challenge while denying accusations he's insufficiently supportive of President Trump. The final polls close across Texas at 9 p.m. Eastern. Texas is an open primary state, so voters can decide which primary to participate in when they show up to the polls. John?
A lot of issues at play there in the Lone Star State. Rich Henson for us. Rich, thank you. Leaders in the field of artificial intelligence were in Washington today. One of the big topics, the military applications for AI and a change in which system the Pentagon will use. Fox Business correspondent Darren Batella joins us tonight. Good evening, Darren.
Hi, good evening, John. So participants at today's summit heard from the Undersecretary for the War Department, who actually handles a lot of the AI contracts that directly impact military strikes. We spoke with him one-on-one at the event.
How is AI being used right now with the conflict in Iran?
Yeah, so I can't talk too much about it, but you can imagine that AI has been used before a conflict to do planning, modeling, simulation. How do you think about logistics and organization? All the things you would use it for in your sort of personal life.
Emil Michael's comments you just heard are coming at a massive turning point for the Pentagon. The War Department is officially phasing out Anthropic after the AI company refused to allow the military unrestricted use to its technology. Now the Pentagon is going all in with OpenAI. It's unusual, John, as you know, for the government to go public about canceling sensitive contracts. Anthropic CEO said new contract language made virtually no progress on preventing Claude's use for mass surveillance of Americans or in full autonomous weapons. The Undersecretary says each company handled talks a little differently.
There's some sense that I have that this wasn't negotiated in good faith, because if I can get in 2 weeks with Elon's company XAI and Grok to the same place I got to in 3 weeks with OpenAI and Sam Altman, and in 3 months I couldn't get there with Anthropic, you have to wonder, you know, what was different?
It almost played out how they wanted it to play out.
It feels that way.
All right, big picture here. The goal of this summit was connecting the Silicon Valley builders with the DC leaders who actually hold the purse strings and write the policy. We'll be watching closely to see how this OpenAI partnership develops. John?
A lot of use of AI in this Iran conflict, too. Darren, thank you for that. Appreciate it. Up next, the panel on the latest developments in the Iran conflict and the Texas primaries. But as we head to break, the Pentagon is releasing the names of 4 U.S. service members who were killed Sunday in Kuwait at the port of Shuaibah during an unmanned aircraft system attack. All soldiers were assigned to the 103rd Sustainment Command out of Des Moines, Iowa. They are Sergeant First Class Nicole Amore of White Bear Lake, Minnesota, Sergeant First Class Noah Teachins of Bellevue, Nebraska, Sergeant Declan Cody of Des Moines, Iowa, and Captain Cody Cork of Lakeland, Florida. Our prayers are with them and their families.
Another day, same pain, same mess.
I just think it's impossible for them to explain why this war of choice was started in the first place.
When the rationale for war keeps shifting,
Oh,
the strategy
nonsense.
is missing.
Shame on you,
And that's
Chuck
because there
Schumer.
is no strategy.
Shame on you.
They're going to always criticize. We've been doing this for years, guys. Iran is run by lunatics, religious fanatic lunatics. They have an ambition to have nuclear weapons.
A lot of debate across the political aisle as to whether or not the president was justified in going after Iran. Let's bring in our panel. Meredith McGraw, White House reporter for the Wall Street Journal, USA Today White House correspondent Francesca Chambers, and Real Clear Politics White House correspondent Philip Wegman. We've got an all White House correspondent panel, and considering I used to be one, I guess it's 4 of us, right? So how about that? So nobody was in the Oval Office today, but Friedrich Merz, the Chancellor of Germany, was. This is what he put out on X following his meeting with the president. Good to see you again, President Trump. Difficult times call for strong partnerships. Iran spreads terror. This endangers our partners and us. We share a clear interest in putting an end to all of this. Francesca, contrast that with what's being said across the street here in Capitol Hill.
Well, on Capitol Hill this afternoon, Marco Rubio got pressed by reporters during his appearances coming out of those briefings today, or it was in between those briefings today, on this argument that he had made yesterday about the fact that he said that President Trump went in because Israel was going to strike, and as a result of that, then the timing was now, there would otherwise been higher casualties. Well, then the president
That's not
said
what
today,
he said.
No, I decided to strike. If anything, it might have been the other way around, was the way he suggested it. And so then Rubio really got pressed on that point. I think what he was saying in the end was, listen, this was an action that the president needed to take one way or another. These negotiations were going nowhere.
He just went back to the old, they're all nuts over there, and you really want them to have a nuclear weapon.
Yeah, not so long ago to suggest that Israel forced the hand of the United States would have been derided as a right-wing conspiracy. Now you see Senate Democrats raising that question because of what Secretary of State raised in that gaggle. What the White House will point out, though, is that yesterday, as well as today, Rubio said that the United States was going to go anyway, regardless of Israel. And I think at this point, the administration is pointing to the larger question of nuclear proliferation, not a question of an ally in the region.
You know, Meredith, all the talk is on Capitol Hill now is there going to be a vote on a war powers resolution later on this week? Members of Congress, particularly on the Democratic side, are saying the president needs to have the authorization from Congress. But let's all jump back in the Wayback Machine with Peabody and Sherman. This was June the 16th, 2011, when Nancy Pelosi, who was then the minority leader, was asked that very question of Barack Obama. Listen here.
Madam Leader, you're saying that the president did not need authorization initially and still does not need any authorization from Congress on Libya?
Yes.
Thank you both.
Thank you all very much.
She's saying that Obama didn't need authorization for a bombing campaign that lasted 7 months. We're 4 days into this, and they're screaming from the rooftops.
And I think we're going to be hearing more from this. I mean, you showed earlier in the program, Jeffrey's getting questioned about this very moment and this very question that was posed to Pelosi a while ago. I think right now, Republicans are supportive of the president and his campaign in Iran. But what we kept hearing today from lawmakers on the Hill and from Republicans is that there is, of course, a limited timeline here. The president has said that he could see this operation going for 4 to 5 weeks. But if this operation stretches to 60 days, even further, there is really wartime fatigue. And if more U.S. service members are killed, we've already had 6 that have been lost in combat. And if lawmakers feel like there isn't a clear direction for where things are going, I do think we could start seeing some pushback, even from Republicans.
If we weren't in the middle of a conflict with Iran, we'd probably be talking more than anything else about the primary going on in Texas right now, because we've got Jasmine Crockett and James Tallarico on the Democratic side. They really are the top 2 front runners, though Ahmad Hassan is in there as well. And then on the Republican side, we've got John Cornyn, Ken Paxton, and Wesley Hunt. That one's really a horse race. Francesca, who do you think is going to come out on top for the Democrats? Is there any question that it's going to be Tallarico?
I knew you were probably going to ask us for predictions today. What I do think I find interesting about the Democratic race, though, is that former Vice President Kamala Harris has actually gotten in on behalf of Jasmine Crockett. We haven't seen her as involved since she's been out of office in a lot of these political sorts of things. But Crockett was a co-chair of her campaign when she ran for president last year. So, she got in to help her. Will that be enough to pull Jasmine Crockett over the finish line?
Cardi B might do it.
But it will certainly be a test of the continued political power of the former Vice President of the United States.
Looks like the Republicans might be headed for a runoff. Ken Paxton seemed to have the lead going into today.
And certainly Republicans, they would love to run against Representative Jasmine Crockett, but they have their own troubles right now. Senator John Cornyn, the best argument that he's making right now is saying, I'm the one who can fend off Democrats. This should be a safe red state. Instead, they have their own food fight on their hands at a moment when this normally would be considered in the bag for Republicans.
It's interesting that the guy that you cover every day, President Trump, is not endorsed in the Republican race.
Well, that's the big X factor here. And I think if this primary goes to a runoff, I could see the president potentially getting involved. But he still hasn't weighed in here. I think one thing is for certain, this race is going to be extremely expensive, as will the race in North Carolina as well. And welcome America to the 2026 midterms. Tonight's the kickoff.
You mentioned North Carolina, so let's talk about that, because there seems to be very little doubt that Roy Cooper is going to be there along with Michael Whatley come November. The Real Clear Politics average has got Cooper beating Whatley right now by 10 points, which in North Carolina ain't good.
Yeah, they're definitely feeling bullish, Democrats are, that he could, put this in play in a state that President Donald Trump, decisively won.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't think any Democrats won statewide in a long time there.
Yeah, the thing that I keep coming back to when I talk to operatives from North Carolina is first they say that Republicans have not lost that Senate seat since 2008, but then other operatives will
Thank you for filling in the details.
and say that Roy Cooper, who is well known and well liked in the state, he hasn't lost a race since the 1980s. So one of those trends can't hold.
Yeah, all right, so is it going to be Whatley or Cooper? Come on, give us a prediction.
I'm not going to make the prediction here. I'm going to let the voters decide.
Wise choice. Thanks for joining us all, folks. Love having the White House correspondent panel.
Thanks, John.
Feels like old times. I used to hang around the White House with all of them. Tomorrow on Special Report, brand new Fox polls on the economy, tariffs, and the president's job ratings. Remember, if you can't catch us live, set your DVR. 6 o'clock Eastern, 3 p.m. on the West Coast. Thanks so much for watching Special Report. I'm John Roberts in Washington. Brett will be back again tomorrow.
Militaries are explicit about this. Get rid of this capability that they have. Get rid of the launchers, their Navy, their military, so that you are going to stop these attacks from these terrorist organizations. Laura, think about what they have done in the Middle East, Iran, and whether you go back to taking over the embassy or you look at the barracks, you look at Cole, you look at October 7th, look at what they have sown in the Middle East and the upheaval they have caused. Take away this capacity.
Senator, after the briefing today that you attended with Rubio, Hegseth, etc., Connecticut Senator Richard Blumenthal described what he's most fearful of. Watch.
I am more fearful than ever after this briefing that we may be putting boots on the ground, and that
and so if we do,
may be necessary to accomplish
to keep
objectives
them from attacking
the
us,
administration
grow up,
seems to have,
Blumenthal.
but I also am no more clear on what the priorities are going to be of the administration going forward.
I know you're so nice and you don't want to say anything mean about anybody, but is he being truthful there? I mean, are you concerned there's going to be boots on the ground?
Repeatedly, they said there are 3 objectives.
What about boots on the ground? Do that first.
They did not talk about boots on the ground.
But did they rule it out?
They mentioned that there were not boots on the ground. They didn't have a plan for boots on the ground. But there is something important here. And Secretary Hegseth made the statement, we don't broadcast our military plans and we don't lock in the President of the United States. He is the Commander-in-Chief. And there's also something else. We do not need 535 commanders in chief. We have one. His name is President Donald Trump.
Right,
It sounds like
absolutely.
they're cheering for failure almost. I don't want to say that. It sounds awful, but whether it's they're hoping the stock market collapses or cheering against America or rooting against America.
Let's cheer for the USA. I thought that after the State of the Union, we were on a good track with this. This weekend, taking out the Ayatollah, positive.
All right, Senator, great to see you in studio. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And now for the new China-Iran axis. Now, for years, U.S. military officials have known that without assistance from China, Iranian missile stockpiles would not have been as deep or as threatening to the region and to us. Reporting from the Hudson Institute recounts how Israeli defense planners had tracked how Chinese components, machine tools, and technical guidance were accelerating Iranian production lines.
Absolutely.
5,000 missiles by 2027, potentially 10,000 by the end of the decade. Every warhead carried a Chinese fingerprint, from solid fuel propellant chemistry to the precision guidance systems that turn
don't tell you
inaccurate
everything.
rockets
You're
into weapons
really
capable of
naive.
striking downtown
It tells
Abu
me
Dhabi.
everything.
The Chinese government was industrializing Iran's capacity
I'm thrilled that
to
we're
hold
there,
the Middle East
and I'm
at
thrilled if we need to put boots on the ground
Translation here,
to take charge.
China might not like this conflict because it takes away some of their oil supply for at least the short term, but they're partly responsible here. Here to respond is Peter Schweizer, president of the Government Accountability Institute and author of the book, The Invisible Coup, all about China in the U.S. Peter, what do we need to understand here? Because China's like, these strikes are terrible, these are awful, this conflagration in Iran is more jingoistic behavior from the United States. But they reindustrialized or industrialized Iran, did they not?
Yeah, they did, Laura. And look, Donald Trump not only reshuffled the deck, he's laid the cards out for the players, and China now has a terrible hand. Think about this. China provided them their most advanced air defense systems to Iran, totally decimated by the United States and the Israelis. China's invested more than $100 billion in Iran, in industrial, energy projects, etc. Much of that in loans to the Iranian government. They're not going to get that back. With both Venezuela and Iran, Donald Trump has effectively taken 20% of China's oil supply and reshuffled it. And here's the thing to remember. They were buying that oil as a discount because both Iran and Venezuela are sanctioned, and they were able to buy it not with U.S. dollars. One of their big goals has been to move away from U.S. being the global currency. They're now going to have to go back into the global oil market and buy things with U.S. dollars. So this is a disaster for China on multiple stages, and Donald Trump has shifted the discussion that he's going to have with President Xi when they meet in China almost entirely.
Absolutely.
And he's always so careful, and it's just smart diplomacy going into these talks with China in the spring. He's always so careful that all of our friends, we have a great relationship with China, but they're thinking, oh my God, this is a nightmare scenario for us. And so he does it with kind of a smile, but he goes and he's like, okay, President Xi, this has got to be a peaceful relationship, and we're not putting up with this anymore. So that dynamic cannot be overlooked here, correct? But the other question, Peter, is President Trump kind of dismissed this today. But if we are, as a number of senators have told me on air and off, if we are depleting key supplies of munitions in Tehran and before that and selling to Ukraine, are we more vulnerable with what China may want to do vis-a-vis Taiwan?
Well, you certainly want to reconstitute our industrial base and produce more missiles, but here's the problem. 40% of China's oil goes through the Strait of Hormuz. That's why when the Iranians were saying they were going to shut it, the Chinese were saying, no, we want it to be open. So he now has massive leverage over China. A move on Taiwan would be disastrous for Beijing. And let's keep in mind, Donald Trump remembers in 2020 what the Chinese did during COVID. When they told him,
stop talking about COVID coming from us, or we're going to stop providing you with PPE supplies. And what they told him earlier in this administration about rare earths, he's now switched the conversation completely to his advantage. It was a brilliant move.
And he's moving to reindustrialize the United States, which again, once this war, conflict, whatever we're calling it, wraps up, got to get back to the economy. And I know he understands that all too well. Peter, thank you very much. And coming up, what
All of that was very true.
sympathizers here in the U.S. are getting wrong about these strikes.
I can handle that for you. I can handle
Helping Adrian Brody prepare for his role as a TurboTax expert.
Okay.
Well, that's how people in Iran are reacting to the strikes that killed their supreme leader. But what's happening here at home?
Shame on them. Shame on these people.
Fans of the Ayatollah, yeah, they're hitting the streets. They have their perfectly printed signs. And you know what the message really is? That white liberals know a lot more about what's good for the people of Iran than the people of Iran who actually suffer under that brutal regime. Now, this is typical group of agitators. You got Code Pink, you got the Women's March, the Answer Coalition, bunch of commies, whiny college students, entitled brats. And now mosques, of course, are getting in on the action. The Manassas Mosque in Virginia, not too far from where we're broadcasting, co-sponsored a rally at the White House yesterday. That's after, by the way, it held a potluck dinner to honor the Supreme Leader and, quote, to remember his eminence as we navigate what our responsibilities are today. Here to discuss is Shay Kateri from the Yorktown Institute. He fled Iran in 2011 after his political activism got him expelled from college. Shay, there are radicals in a lot of the mosques in the United States. We know that for a fact. We've covered it for years. What do you say to the people of the United States who are watching some of these moments unfold in these Islamic houses of worship?
You know, Laura, if you care about human rights, I would like to remind you that between 30 to 40,000 Iranians were massacred over a weekend last month. Iran is a country that oppresses every individual and every group. There's a shortage of Plan B in Iran right now because of the women who were arrested during the protests are being raped in prisons right now. But I am an immigrant to the United States, but I love this country more than anything else. And my loyalty is to America, and let me implore with Americans out there. The first action of the Islamic Republic on the world stage was occupying our embassy, which is sovereign territory. Iran has killed, through its proxies and directly, about 700 Americans over the past 47 years. Many in Iraq lost their limbs because of Iranian IEDs. Just 2023, 24, Iranian proxies killed 3 U.S. soldiers in Jordan, 2 Navy SEALs drowned while trying to fight Iran-backed Houthis. October 7 massacres, which killed many American citizens, was backed by Iran.
And Shay, sorry to jump in here. Your own father, I know, was tortured at the hands of this regime. And Americans, you know, their hearts break for anyone living under persecution. We see what's happening in Africa at the hands of Islamic rebels there, burning Christian villages alive. And, you know, people go on with their lives here and don't do anything. And but there's, you know, not a severe threat against the United States or, I guess, our interest there. But the concern among some Americans here is a long, protracted war where there are American boots on the ground, the whole region goes up in flames. But I don't sense that's the president's goal or what's going to happen at all. I think he sees what's at stake, sees the threat, and is acting against it. I do not believe this is going to go on and on. I don't think the Congress or, frankly, his own base would want that. And I think they're right on the right track.
You know, Laura, people are worried about boots on the ground. We have boots on the ground in Iran. Those boots are Iranian people who want to fight the regime together with us, but no American boots. I think the president is doing the right thing here. This is not an American regime change war. This is a war to pave the way for the Iranian people to overthrow the regime, and that's the right objective, I think.
It's right. It's their moment. It's their time. Shay, thank you very much. And coming up, more fallout from the Epstein files, and it ain't sinking Trump.
Total Beats, America's best-selling Beats brand, is available at Walmart. Total Beats blood pressure support soft.
Why would Epstein say that about you?
First of all, that's not true.
What's not true?
That I have any interest in underage.
I didn't say underage, I said young.
But it's still not true.
Well, as U.S. and Israeli bombs are hitting targets in Iran tonight, Democrats keep missing theirs with the Epstein files. Since the files released, the fallout has not touched President Trump, but it's hitting their globalist buddies really hard. Joining us now, Eric Schmidt, great senator. Senator, look, this has been a joke from the beginning, not what the files say, but the Democrats' attempt to use these against the Trump administration. This was just an embarrassment. I mean,
it was strange. It was strange. I mean, former President Clinton was looking at these photos long
that hot tub photo.
Very strange. But yeah, this is like Lucy in the football. They thought they had President Trump. Just like, by the way, they thought they had with this weaponization we saw when he was running for president. They thought they were going to throw him in jail for the rest of his life. And the ultimate revenge, as President Trump said, was victory in winning in this historic comeback. So the Democrats keep trying to make everything about President Trump, and they keep losing.
Speaking of Iran, you've seen some of the public opinion polls, and President Trump's not going to give away his battle plan. Of course, he would never do that. He's really smart. But people seem to say, we support getting rid of this regime if it's a matter of days and weeks. 76%. I mean, can you imagine? That's huge. If it's months, it's like 43%, then it goes down to like nothing. It looks like we've accomplished almost everything that we've set out to do.
I think they have been very clear about what the objective here is, which is to make sure Iran can never have a nuclear weapon. And so they're taking out those ballistic missiles that would protect that program. But President Trump has been, clear that, and has learned, I think, the lessons from history here that we're not interested in a forever war in the Middle East.
Missourians
aren't interested in that either. So this is about a decisive action to take out their nuclear capability, but, long protracted war in the Middle East, it's just not,
They got to stay on the economy. Now, you had an incredibly moving moment today on the Senate floor when you read the names of victims of illegal alien crime in the United States. I got choked up watching it, but why was that important for you to do?
I think to remind the people, not just in that hearing, but everybody in this country, what this whole thing is about. The Democrats have tried to hijack this. They're not funding DHS right now. Thank God we had the foresight to front load the funding for ICE, because the deportations are going to continue, because there are too many sons and daughters of American citizens who've been raped and murdered by illegal immigrants, and the deportations must continue. I think it's very easy somehow to gloss over that. President Trump secured the border. We need to deport these criminals. And by the way, let's be clear what a sanctuary jurisdiction is, Laura. You and I both know. It means that local authorities like
Fairfax County, Virginia,
are not going to tell ICE when convicted murderers and rapists are released from prison. Think about that. That's what this is about. They don't want to tell ICE because they don't want people deported, even the worst of the worst.
Oh, we see in Fairfax County, that poor woman at the bus stop. We're talking 20 minutes from here.
He had
sitting
30
in a
priors.
bus stop. 30 priors, illegal alien. Spanberger still will not cooperate.
Think about
the new governor. She is a disaster.
Think about the combination. Soros prosecutor doesn't prosecute and releases, and then local jurisdictions don't tell ICE of illegal immigrants who are criminals. This is a disaster.
Now, Toscano is the prosecutor there.
Shame on her.
Thank you very much. And as child exploitation cases surge nationwide, Tim Tebow returned to Capitol Hill demanding action. He joins us in studio next.
Great athlete and a great human being.
I'm feeling
Tim
more confident
Tebow.
about the future after reviewing my choices with.
Turns out we don't have to travel to Iran to see heartbreaking violations of human rights. It's happening right here in the United States every day at the evil hands of cartels, criminal gangs, and other twisted freaks. And the targets range from toddlers to teens. A repeat sex offender in Maryland pleading guilty to making and distributing child porn. In Alabama, 5 men were just busted in a child sex trafficking ring. And in New York, a 57-year-old man was charged with possessing graphic images and videos of child sex abuse. And that's just from this week. The data from the Internet Watch Foundation reveals that 2025 was the worst year on record for depictions of online child sexual abuse. And the sad truth is, of course, we have no idea how many children are being exploited and victimized in America. But we do know it's a global curse, and with some cultures even defending the abuse. Let's never forget the rapes of boys in Afghanistan. But what more can be done here at home? Well, Tim Tebow's foundation has been dedicated to helping identify the now 89,000 victims of child pornography and other online exploitation, currently sitting, by the way, in federal databases. And Tim was back on the Hill today.
We have to do a whole lot more, and we have to do it faster, because every day we wait, they're suffering, they're crying, and I believe right now many of them are praying that we would respond.
Former NFL star, I guess he's a
nice
commentator, Gator. Tim Tebow is here in studio.
Wonderful,
He's on
too.
fire for Jesus.
This is so infuriating to me. It's so heartbreaking. Some of these kids are barely out of diapers.
Oh, a lot of them aren't.
I mean, what needs to happen to stop this and to track down the identity of those perpetrators and the victims?
A whole lot needs to happen. I would say number one is that we got to create a bigger army that is fighting this. Right now at C3, the Cybercrime Center, they're just some of the best in the world. But there's only 10 victim identification specialists there. And you're telling me that it's 10 people's job to identify 89,000. That is impossible for them to do. And they're the best. I was there this morning. They're incredible. I love them so much. But we got to create a bigger army that is trained with the right technology and equipped to be able to fight against this evil, because it is one of the fastest growing crime types in the world. A few years ago when we were testifying, that number was at 57,000. Now it's at 89,000. And that's with thousands of boys and girls that have been identified with the amazing law enforcement and the NGOs and nonprofits that are working against it, and it's still that high. And that's just one database. That's just ICSA database from Interpol. There's also CADE, there's Australian, there's HSI database, there's FBI database. There's so many databases, and one thing we also need to do is have them work together so that they can have an international treaty that leads to a deconfliction, so you can actually get all the ground truth.
Amen.
AI is a big problem when it comes to this issue. Very briefly explain how.
Well, AI is a problem when you're having boys and girls that are getting abused and raped. And I hate to even call it child porn, because that's not what it is. Right. It's child abuse and it's child rape. And so what they're doing to be able to throw off the investigators is they're putting AI in it, but it's also with the real boy or girl. So they will AI a hand or put a bunny or something else that's in so that the technology will say, no, this is AI, to be able to throw the investigators off of their tracks. That's also why we need the best technology and the best training for the investigators.
How did you get into this issue? I mean, everyone has a charity when they're like you, this is my foundation, but why this issue?
Well, because I believe it's what God's called me to. And it started a long time ago when my dad was overseas and they were selling boys and girls, and he couldn't help it, and he purchased the freedom of that started it for 4 little girls. And I knew that it's one of the worst evils in the world, and we have to do so much more. But I think one of the things is that not an accurate perspective and perception is given to this. This isn't just happening around the world. It's happening in every neighborhood right here in America. Like, out of all those that have been identified and safeguarded from the Operation Renewed Hopes, just under half are right here in the U.S. This is happening, and the number one offender, and people don't like it when I say this, but we have to tell the truth, and we have to get accurate picture. The number one offender is biological fathers. And men have to step up and stand up and be the men that we're called and created to be, to protect, not exploit. And it's going to start at the home.
This is demonic.
It is.
Right.
It's a battle of good and evil.
Yeah. So this ultimately is a spiritual battle, and you're seeing this play out across culture. You know, morphing sexuality, morphing traditional roles for families. So this is bigger than just this one issue. But do you feel do you feel that God is calling you to fight at this moment on this, and do you feel the forces against you? Because the closer you get to solving something, the more, in my view, the devil comes at you.
Yes and yes, but I also would believe this would be one of the biggest reasons of why I'm created. With the little strength that I have, wasn't to carry a football, to be able to lift up these image bearers of our Creator and bring them to a place of protection.
What a wonderful man.
And when people
God
actually
bless him.
Really see the boys and girls that go through this, you can't never unsee it. And so many times when we just talk
away,
because it makes people uncomfortable. It is uncomfortable, but compassion is also uncomfortable. I do not believe that you can have a life of comfort and compassion at the same time, because compassion literally means to be moved from your most inward parts. It is uncomfortable, but we have to be willing to be uncomfortable one day so that these boys and girls can be comfortable.
Amen.
It is incredibly inspiring, and I'll help you in any way I can.
Thank you.
So, thanks, Tony.
Thank you so much.
All right, great to see you. And coming up, we're minutes away from the first polls closing in Texas. Big primary night. Details next.
The worst moments of these children's lives, they're being videotaped, and they're being shared with other offenders all over the world.
Many people would refer to this as CSAM, child sexual abuse material.
They are suffering, and they don't think that anyone is coming to help them. But we can. We can build that army, and we can go get them.
Give monthly and fuel the fight all year long.
Are you ready to make your dream kitchen a reality?
Polls closed a couple of minutes ago, except in one precinct that had a delayed opening. Arkansas closes later tonight. In minutes, the first polls are closing in Texas. A really big, hotly contested, expensive Senate race there. And on the GOP side, three-way race, incumbent Senator Cornyn, Attorney General Ken Paxton, and Congressman Wesley Hunt. President Trump has mostly stayed out of this race. It's smart, never endorsing anyone. On the Democrat side, it's State Rep James Tallarico and Congresswoman Jasmine Jazzy Crockett. Here to weigh in, Mary Catherine Ham, Fox News contributor, Matt Towery, political analyst and pollster. Matt, Democrats see huge turnout, and they say, we're going to take Texas. We really mean it this time. Texas is going blue. Your thoughts?
Well, you know, they say that every time, it doesn't happen. But I will say one thing. Tallarico looks like a pretty good candidate. He's going to wax, I think, Crockett tonight. And Laura, we're really going to miss her and all her pithy little things we could listen to all the time and have a chuckle with. But I think she's going to be bye-bye. It depends. You know, Paxton, the argument the Republicans have is that Paxton has a lot of baggage. If he gets nominated, he can't win. But Paxton also has a lot of people who support him and may be more fired up to turn out in a general election. So I'm not buying that he can't win a general election. Right now, Polly Market has an 80% chance that he'll be the nominee. So I don't think Cornyn really has much of an opportunity to go back to the Senate.
Yeah, let's face it, all the pundits in D.C., they hate Paxton, they love Cornyn, and, you know, so does the Senate leadership. You know, that's just the way it goes. I mean, that's not surprising. Mary Catherine, in the House, multiple incumbents are facing challengers, a bunch of newly drawn districts, people like 37-year-old Christian Menifee, working to take out some of the old dinosaurs like the cane-waving Al Green. Thoughts there?
Yeah, I think this generational shift is a large part of the story, right? Whether it's Tallarico or Crockett or these other races, I think it's going to be interesting to see, because you can vote on either side in a Texas primary. How many folks are coming out in these border counties to vote in Republican versus Democrat? I'd like to see what some of that momentum looks like. I think the Senate race between the Democrats is somewhat more spicy than the Republican one at the moment, so people might be crossing over to pay more attention to that one. But I think there's a couple things we can tell from that when we see some of those numbers. Also, as you noted, Cornyn has spent $60 million to stay in this race. So it'll be interesting to see if that goes to a runoff, exactly what Trump might do in that case and what the party decides to do, because having those two tear each other down until May, if the other side ends up without a runoff, that could be trouble for the party.
And Matt, however these primaries turn out, we have a long run to November. And what we talked about as we started this show, the public opinion polls on Iran, huge support for removing the Ayatollah and the nuclear threat, the threat to the region. If it's weeks and days, right, 76%. But if it goes on months and years, the approval numbers for that goes way down.
I mean, we did a flash poll that had 54% versus 37% support for the president on Saturday. I think those numbers are correct, by the way. I've seen a lot of silly polls since then that showed it way down. I don't believe that. But I will say this. This thing has to be quick. It can't last for a long time because you and I, we've seen this movie before.
Oh, yeah.
It does not end well.
Mary Catherine, you agree with that, given what's on the line, and the focus coming out of that State of the Union was good news on the economy, and now this.
Well, look, I agree. Trump's signature has been wielding U.S. power, wielding it quickly and wielding it effectively. And if that is the story here and it doesn't last too long and he's able to keep that message consistent and say, I made you guys safer and this is how I did it and now it is over, I think that will play well. But it's a big risk he's taking, but it is probably a worthy risk to create a safer situation in the future.
I'd bet on Trump any day over the people who continuously predict doom and gloom. I'm still waiting for the stock market crash after the tariffs. I'm still waiting for that. Mary Catherine, Matt, both of you, thank you so much. That is it for us tonight. Make sure to follow me on social media. We had some good Instagram stuff up with Tim Tebow. You don't want to miss that. Jesse Waters, he takes it all from here. Continuing coverage of the conflict in Iran on the Fox News channel. Stay with us.